Sluggate Part 2. The big thing we talked about with Ian Cook, thank you for joining me from iCook Foods.
Nice to see you again.
This scandal about the slug that was planted, we looked at in Part 1. This is a special for the People's Project. Part 2, why? Why would they do this, Ian? So I think we've covered the what. I think it's pretty devastating what we've shown. You're telling me that the government, the council, you were going in on their... this. What are you talking about?
Okay, so
you're a private company running a catering business. What the hell does the council have a business in being a competitor to you?
Yeah, well, that actually brings up another good point, and that is that the council are part owners in a competitive business. And just putting that in perspective as well is they are our largest competitor and we are their largest competitor. So we're the two top providers in this marketplace.
Which is catering food for hospitals?
No, mainly for Meals on Wheels.
Okay.
So what you've got is during the GFC, Albanese hands over $9 million to the state government. Well, the council's in the state government.
So Albanese's in government at the time, sorry.
Correct, yes. So he's the Minister for Infrastructure.
Yeah.
So he hands over $9 million to the state. The state then adds $6 million, which goes through Daniel Andrews as Health Minister. They give it to the councils. The councils chip in a couple of million of their own, and then they go and borrow about another, I think it's 9 or 10 million approximately, and they set up a competitive business. And they set up a business that takes out one other competitor. So there was another competitor about our size in the marketplace, so they were taken out. We nearly were taken out, but we survived. We actually wrote to Albanese and told him, if you do this, you will, A, destroy other jobs, you will skew the market, and it won't end, it'll end in tears, it won't end well.
So hang on, this is a GFC, like a stimulus, pump up the economy.
Correct.
The federal Labor government gives the state Labor government here in Victoria money to build a business. First of all, why are they doing that? And are you telling me now that there's a state-owned business called, what is it called?
Community Chef.
So Community Chef is a state-owned competitor to a private business.
Correct. Yep.
Before we even, we could wrap the interview here, that's ridiculous.
Yes.
What business does a government...
And the fact that we wrote to him and discussed it, and I mean, I'm talking about a 5-page letter or more that we gave him and went through exactly what would happen. And it turns out to be quite prophetic, that letter, because almost everything we said happened.
What was his reply to your letter?
So he replied to us saying that I shouldn't worry about it and that they would be working with me and that all the things that I was worried about wouldn't happen. Well, A, they all happened, and B, he says that the project manager is going to work with me to make sure it doesn't happen. Never heard from anyone.
Okay. What concerns me here, though, is that I'm a small business guy. I'm not from, I'm pretty dumb in this regard, but just a basic understanding, that seems like a conflict of interest to me, because the people who own Community Chef are the same people, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're the people that do these health inspections.
They regulate us. So putting that into simple terms, that's like saying to Hungry Jack's, here you go, you now regulate McDonald's. So if you want to close them, close them.
So Community Chef is owned by the council.
Yep.
Who then come and close you down.
Correct.
You know when they say, where there's smoke, there's fire?
Yes.
I know we haven't found the fire yet, but my God, there's a lot of smoke.
Oh, yes, there is a lot of smoke. There's also, at first, I think they thought they were just going to be able to run us out of business, right? That would be the normal way to, but they lose money every year. So while they're losing money every year, they get to a point, and then if you go from 2015 to, the end of 2015 into 16 to 18, in that 3-year period, we take nearly $4 million worth of contracts off them that they were sure they were going to win. Next minute, they've got Vargo breathing down their neck saying you're trading insolvent, so they kept having to go back to the department for free money.
Who's Vargo?
The Victorian Auditor General.
Okay.
And they keep going back to the department looking for free money. So it gets to a point where the only way for them to survive is to become part of the health system and have the free money all the time, like a hospital where they just get given money. So
this is regulatory capture.
Yeah.
This is what. Okay, so I was going to ask you why Community Chef, this state-owned, government, council-owned competitor, which is a joke, why they wanted to destroy you. He's saying it's because they couldn't run, because the government couldn't run a business. Surprise, surprise.
That's right.
Is that what you're telling me?
That's pretty much, yep. they know they can't run a business. They proved that year in, year out.
Yeah.
But the but to it is that if you actually look at their figures, they're charging more than us.
Right.
Okay, their food cost is great, their gross profit terrific, but their front office chews up everything. And you've got to say, where's the money going?
So, because you told me about this off air, you plugged in their
Food cost.
Their
so
food
we
cost,
plugged their food cost into our figures. Now, we were making money every year anyway, but if we took their food cost and just plugged it in, took ours out and put theirs in,
Yeah.
so it's apples with apples. We changed nothing else. We're not comparing anything else. We're just that.
What was the result?
The result was we doubled or tripled our profit every year.
So, okay, but the reality is, with those figures,
Even with them charging more and getting no payroll tax, not having to go to tender, people prepaying, all of the benefits they get, they still couldn't make a dollar.
Okay.
But they didn't. It wasn't the manufacturing that lost the money.
So, in my mind, I sort of flip between either they're so incompetent, which is my general view of government, or is it nefarious? And in this case, some of the things you told me are quite scary. That John Benny, CEO of Dandenong Council, the regulator, shut you down, was on the board of Community Chef.
Yeah. So he was one of the founding board members when they first started. So he was on for, I think, about 3 years. Then he left the board and had things to focus on at Dandenong. And then he was reappointed from memory 2017. He was reappointed to the board. And so you've got my regulator, the CEO of my regulator, is now
Your competitor.
my competitor and running the show. And you've got a business losing a lot of money.
Well, this is important because when I think I read a thing with John Benny, the CEO of Dandenong Council, saying that he couldn't be part of the shutting you down because there was a conflict of interest because he is a board member of Community Chef, which is why Brett Sutton had to get involved, right?
Yeah, I have a couple of issues with all of that. Number one, let's deal with Benny. So Benny says that he can't shut us down because of a conflict of interest. Right. And yet he has a teleconference on the night of the 21st. Remember, we're shut down on the paperwork goes on the wall on the early morning on the 22nd. So he says he can't shut us down because of a conflict of interest.
Which is Community Chef.
Yep. He's sitting in having a video conference with Brett Sutton discussing our shutdown. I mean, if you have a conflict of interest, you say, Matt, I'm sorry, I have a conflict of interest. You get up and you walk out the door.
Right.
But he didn't. He stayed there for the whole time. I have counsellors who saw it all and they watched him through the whole meeting. So he does that. And then you say, okay, well, so he says he has a conflict of interest. The very next morning, they've pinned it up on the wall, we're now shut. 9:30 in the morning, John Benny arrives at the RACV club for a board meeting of Community Chef, and he tells all his board members about the fact that they've just shut us down. Community Chef organised to get to the MAV and make sure that all our contracts know that Community Chef is there to help.
Okay.
Now, if you have a conflict of interest and you're a director, you go in there and say nothing.
That's right.
Community Chef will find out if it gets in the marketplace. There was absolutely no need to say anything.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about Sutton. So Sutton is there, and he shuts you down.
Yep.
But was the problem that? So I have a problem with what Sutton has said later on. So Sutton, was he in on the shutdown, trying to shut you down, and was he part of this subsequent cover-up, or is he clean in all this?
No, he's certainly not clean. He's quite a malicious man. I mean,
He doesn't appear malicious.
Yeah, well, you can be born with a face, but you can still be malicious.
You can be born with Bambi eyes.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't know the man before this, obviously, but I've got to know him and watch him, and he's really just a pathological liar.
There's a big claim.
It is a big claim, but it's provable. I mean, you want me to step them through? We can spend another interview sometime just stepping through how Sutton lies.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, he had just become the acting chief health officer.
Right.
He's now got a company that he thinks Listeria might be attached to and may have something to do with a hospital.
Which is your company, yeah.
He's able to then do his first big press conference and come out with statements like thousands are at risk, like he's the great saviour.
We need to show the people this because he actually named you in this press conference.
Yeah, and there was absolutely no reason to.
Okay.
You think about it, we only produced food under contract for other people who knew exactly who it was going to. It's not like I was producing for Coles, Woolworths, where you don't know who's buying it.
Okay.
If there had been a problem, but there was no problem.
Sure.
He's gone out on a pretty nefarious bunch of facts and said, you know what, I'm going to look pretty good here.
Let's have a look at Brett Sutton looking pretty good.
The reason for the closure is because we're investigating a case of listeriosis or listeria infection that occurred in a woman in her 80s who subsequently died in early February. In the course of investigating that illness, we understand that she's consumed a number of high-risk foods. They were investigated in the community, but they've also been traced back potentially to iCook foods in Dandenong South. And in the course of looking into the foods produced there have been a number of positive samples that have turned up in the kitchen that haven't been definitively linked to the unfortunate case who's died, but that's still under investigation. Potentially thousands of people have been exposed. We don't know the level of listeria contamination that might have occurred.
All right, so are you telling me that they're announcing in front of everyone he's a new acting Chief Health Officer, he's grandstanding?
Correct.
Okay.
That's exactly what he's doing.
What did he do after this?
So after that, remember, he does all of this and he shuts us without any scientific information. He has no evidence of what he's doing. What he does has is a few, what you might call just scraps, bits. By the following Wednesday, all the things he had said evaporated on him. The food was safe. That's off the table.
Which we showed in part one, yes.
Yep. And then you've got the genetic match. Well, they hid that document for a month from me, and when we finally got that, turns out the document proves that the products that they thought were actually national products.
Yeah.
Therefore, it couldn't have been us.
Okay.
So they just start to cover up.
Right.
And he keeps covering up, and he keeps covering up.
So was he? Didn't he give testimony under oath? Or was that Dr. Angie Bone?
No, he gives testimony under oath. So that's what I say. If you want to pick out the lies, you just have to watch him at the parliamentary inquiry where he steps through. He says things like, he says that the listeria had a DNA fingerprint.
Yeah.
Now, when they talk about DNA sequencing for bacteria, it's all a hypothesis. It's a best guess. There is no DNA fingerprint. He just lies about things to make it sound like he was, saving people and doing the right thing.
Ian, you know who we're talking about, right? We're talking about a man whose very medical judgment right now, talking about the beast of a virus, is shutting down our entire state, millions of people.
Mm-hmm. So previously I would have believed, and I did believe in the system. Now, if you ask me, I have no faith in the man. I don't see science coming out of him. I just... given the volume of lies and untruths that he has told in our matter, how anyone can believe him in a serious situation like we're in at the moment is beyond me.
This is very important, and we'll look at it in another show, I guess, but to understand the man behind all of the health directors right now trying to deal with coronavirus, it's very important. All right, let's go back to the Dr. Angie Bone. Who is that? And because I saw she said some stuff to the Supreme Court and the inquiry. So there's a parliamentary inquiry into iCook Foods, which was completed and has now been reopened, but there seems to be some contradictions going on.
Yes, so Dr. Bone is what they call the deputy chief health officer to Sutton in this area. Now
or at the time?
I believe she's still in the same position.
Okay.
So to close a business down under Section 19 of the Food Act, you need a report. So if Sutton's going to do it, Sutton has to be satisfied from the report of an authorised officer. Mm-hmm. That's what he needs. They wouldn't give us that. For ages they wouldn't give it. We took them to the Supreme Court to get them to give us that report. Dr. Bone told the Supreme Court that she had seen the document that we were getting and that it was the document.
So it exists, but you can't see it. Okay.
Yeah, well, she's arguing with what she argues with the Supreme Court is that in her affidavit she says, "I've seen it, and if we don't think you should give it to them, but if you do give it to them, it has to be confidential."
Oh, okay.
Which is because it was rubbish in the first place.
Okay.
So that cost me $70,000. We get into the parliamentary inquiry, and Dr. Bone is asked in the parliamentary inquiry under oath about this one report, and her answer is, "Oh, people keep asking me about this one report. There is no one report." That's a quote, by the way.
Is it possible to get the full copy of the departmental report?
I've taken on advisement, but
We can certainly, provide you with a copy of the visit that the department officers made on the 22nd of February.
But-
There is a report there.
But this information here on page 10, that's from that's a précis, a summary of our report. That
Not-
exists.
not-
multiple
Does it exist?
reports back from various visits from various officers.
Yeah, I think that's
So
what...
there's not our report.
No, there is no one report, and I think that's something that people keep looking for and asking, is there one standalone bound report?
Whoa, okay, hang on. She just said under oath to the Supreme Court that there is one.
Yep.
And you can't see it, blah, blah, blah. And now she's saying there is none.
Correct.
You know, both of those would be perjury. Well, one of them is perjury. One of the
yep.
two is perjury.
You can't have two sets of opposing facts that are the same.
Both under oath. She's in trouble.
I agree. Absolutely, I agree.
Okay, sounds very legal. So what's going on with her? Is that there must be an investigation against her?
Well, some of these things have come out. So the things that have come out, and when we were talking about facts that Sutton had, I told you about the lies.
Yeah.
Sutton had a document that said she didn't eat my food when he closed me.
Oh.
Okay, so then you say, okay, and Bone had it. They all knew. They all said the opposite things of the parliamentary inquiry. So the parliamentary inquiry has now, or the people who ran the parliamentary inquiry have said, whoa, hang on, there's a number of untruths here because you can't have this coming out and being true and what you told us in the inquiry being true. That's why it's reopened.
That's
so
why they've
these people,
reopened it, okay.
they will be investigated, yep.
Okay. How high does this go? Because you've used names right up to the top in this 20 minutes. You've said Dan Andrews helped an elbow, the setup of the whole thing. How much are they able to say, look, we didn't know, it's all gone wrong under John Benny, the CEO of Dandenong Council? Or how much were they involved in the malfeasance?
We know the misfeasance of Garlick, Johnson and Sutton.
Okay, so that's the work, the inspector, health
two
inspector,
inspectors, yep.
two inspectors, and John Benny, the CEO of Dandenong Council, and Brett Sutton. Right,
Sutton.
okay.
So we've got, we know what they did, and we know their motivations because we've got board papers and stuff from Community Chef. Then beyond that, what we know is that Andrews put the money up. Andrews rewrote the Food Act at the time. He actually wrote it with effectively writing corruption into it, because in the Food Act that he amended, they added in that any fines that the council wrote, or if they took someone to court and got, then they get to keep the money.
As opposed to going to state general revenue.
Yeah, that's right. Even the police don't get that.
Yeah, so it incentivises Dandenong Council to write a fine.
Any council. But yes,
Well, in this case,
Dandenong in
community.
particular. And Dandenong in particular balances its books with fines, is what I'm told.
Effectively, Community Chef writing fines against their competitor.
Yes, well, you could say that. Yeah, exactly.
What's happened with Community Chef, by the way?
So Community Chef is now owned by the state government. So the state government paid $1 per share for it,
When?
less than 12 months ago.
Okay, so they buy Community Chef
They
from
buy it?
the council.
Yes, they buy it from the council. And when they buy it from the council, they also, with that, they get effectively two other debts. One, the balance of the debt that the councils would have owed them, which was about $3.5 million, plus, give or take a couple of $100,000, $8.5 million to the ANZ Bank.
That means they're not buying Community Chef for $1. They're buying it because they're assuming all those debts.
They're taking all those debts. So
Of what? What'd
the
you say?
taxpayers of Victoria just forked out more.
10 million or
Yep.
something like that.
Yeah.
So Community Chef still exists.
Community Chef still exists. It's going to become a central production kitchen for Western Health. Now, but it still provides Meals on Wheels meals because those contracts are still in place. So as a corporate entity, it still exists. It is still there.
Okay, and Dan Andrews has overseen that purchase now, obviously,
Yeah.
and the initial setup back when he was the health minister as well.
Correct, yeah.
Do you think he would have known exactly what's going on here?
I don't have any direct evidence, but what I can say is that almost everything that happens in Victoria appears to go through Dan Andrews first. So, I mean,
It seems to be
People
coming out
listening.
with leaks at the moment from Labor cabinet and Labor
yeah.
MPs.
Yeah,
Okay.
that doesn't surprise me.
All right. So if what you're telling me is true, all of this, look, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it's becoming more and more difficult. But if what you're telling me is true, you've been the victim of crime.
Absolutely. That's why, that's why we made a complaint to the police, because in some ways there's two parts to for any victim. There is compensation that's required to put you back in the position you were before the crime was committed against you.
Yeah.
This isn't just a case of let's just shut a business down and it doesn't hurt anyone. 41 people lost their jobs, 30 years worth of work evaporated. It was total devastation. The other side is the healing for anyone, whether it's myself or my employees, and that's seeing justice being done.
Yeah.
In a lawless society, you take matters into your own hands. In a civilised society, we have a police force, we have people go out and make sure that justice is done. And so that's why we made the complaint to the police, and they are investigating, and they appear to be doing quite a thorough job second time round. But it's important for us in our healing process that justice is done. The other thing is it's important for every other Victorian, because if these people get away with what they've done, they'll be emboldened to do it again. And you'll have someone else sitting here in this chair telling you a story of destruction.
I definitely don't want that. So you've paid a large price, and I wanted to thank you for speaking out on it, because I've gotten to know you a little bit off camera and on camera, and I'm surprised by the levity and the lightness with which you carry yourself. You've been clearly devastated, but you're so genuine. You're not vindictive and...
For the Star Wars fans, you can't go down to the dark side, it won't help.
That must be hard, though.
And
I'd be ticked off.
I am ticked off, and yes, I get angry, but you have to keep going on. I think one of the things for us is that while I have terribly bad days at times, by the same token, if you don't pick yourself up, if you don't say, I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to hold these people to account, then you lose. And I just can't do it. And I can't do it for the people that worked for me. Can't do it for my wife, my kids. You just have to keep punching away.
This kind of stoicism is something that the young'uns like myself need to learn from some of the older Australians. Excuse me for calling you an older Australian than me. But no, it is amazing. Okay, so what is going to happen moving forward now, finally? What is this investigation stuff going to come to? Obviously, the parliamentary inquiry is reopened. Are the police doing anything? What's going on?
Yeah. So the police, the new investigation by the police and the new inspector in charge has been very good. He has kept in touch with us, kept us updated. It's a fairly big investigation, so he's had a lot of catch up to do, but he appears to be getting his head around that quite quickly. I'm very happy with that, and I'm sure he will take appropriate action shortly, is all I could say. I don't know the exact timeframes, and I guess no victim ever does straight away until it actually happens. Civilly, the courts are way behind because of COVID-19, so our civil matter will be heard in the Supreme Court of Victoria at the moment, sometime in February. That could get pushed out too, depending on other things that happen along the way. And the parliamentary inquiry is reopening, and I think that will be very interesting. I must admit, I was told, we were sitting listening to the testimony given by a number of people, Sutton and Bone and these people, and myself, my son, were sitting there and we're thinking, we just wanted to jump up and just say, hang on, that's a lie, that's a lie. We were told we couldn't say a word on pain of death or whatever it is. We had to just sit and suffer it. So now it will be, it will probably be very good to sit and listen to them try and get out of some of the things they've said.
Amazing. Well, and I think these people are in trouble because you're mounting quite a solid defence and there are a lot of people behind you. Let me ask one supplementary last question. What is their best argument against you here? If we were to steel man their side?
I don't think they've got one. They've tried. The best they come up with every time they try is some sort of, motherhood statement like, we make no apology for putting public safety first. There was no public health issue. So how do you come out with those sorts of statements and that's all you've got? They do not rebut one thing that I say in the media. No one's sued me for defamation and I've called people liars, right? They don't come out and factually try and correct anything. And where they have, so I have to correct myself there, once or twice they've come out and said, yes, but the DNA matched. Well, yes, but they don't tell you that they're not showing you the report that showed it didn't, that actually debunks what they said. So they have nothing. They seriously have nothing.
Ian, thank you for coming in.
No problem.
We'll get through this.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We'll get to the truth in the end somehow.
Yeah, we will. That's true. We will.